I'm going to speak a little on a taboo subject here because a lot of people do not give out specific information. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than my normal content. Please bear with me. If you're not interested in this topic, you don't have to watch it. It's totally fine. At the very end of the video, I will be making some announcements. So if you're not interested in the topic, you can go ahead and fast forward to the end where I'm doing announcements, and that's totally fine. It won't hurt my feelings. Today, we are going to be talking about making custom quilts. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around for the rest of the video. If you don't know, my name is Miriam, and I talk about all kinds of quilting and sewing related things here. And today we are going to be talking all about custom quilts, specifically for someone that wants to make quilts for other people and sell them. So this information is going to be geared more towards custom quilts because that's the bulk of what I was doing. But you can use the information to sell pretty much any kind of handmade item. So if you know someone that's trying to get into making handmade items to make money, go ahead and send them this video. They might find it interesting. Anyways, let's just jump right into it. First thing that I like to figure out when I have someone reach out to me for a custom quilt is I like to, at the very beginning, find out their budget. That is extremely important. I know quilts, so that's going to be the example that I'm going to give. But I know knitting and crocheting and other types of sewing, garment making, we're all kind of the same in that people just do not realize how much money and time goes into making a handmade item. They just think you just whip it together in a few hours from cheap products that you bought from Walmart or wherever they think that we buy our craft supplies. And you know, it's not a big deal, and they can lowball you basically when they come in with their budget. I routinely would have people contact me and want to pay me for, you know, a large quilt, twin, queen size, a large throw for, you know, $100, maybe 200. And, you know, I'd have to nicely say, no, thank you. I always tried to keep it professional. I was never snobby towards anyone, but you need to go about it in a way where you're educating them so they don't just keep on doing that to the next person. But you kind of just tell them, well, actually, the amount that you just told me, that would barely even cover cost of supplies for the size of quilt you're wanting. And that doesn't even cover any of the labor or, you know, anything like that. So I always liked to be very upfront right at the beginning, find out what their budget is, what they're thinking, and kind of send them a list of the different sizes of quilts and then kind of the starting point. So I had my shop on Etsy. In the description of my custom quilt listing, I had like the sizes that I was willing to make and kind of the starting point. So then they knew right away. And that kind of cut down on the messages that I was getting from people where they were like, I'll give you $150 for a queen size quilt. I want all of these designer fabrics, yada, yada, yada. So, so that really helps. So if you're able to do that with whatever you're making, that will help. Just kind of come up with that list. And to come up with that list, you really need to think about a few things. You need to think about how much your materials do cost. Are you going to be using designer fabrics, designer yarn, whatever you're making? Are you going to be using fancy paints if you're a painter? And kind of figure out what bottom line, how much are the materials going to cost for that item. Then you want to think about how much you want to charge for your labor. Some people like to charge per hour. Some people like to charge per piece. So you just kind of have to figure out what works for you. For me, when I was doing quilts, the hours that I would spend on a quilt are drastically different depending on the size of the quilt, the complexity of the pattern, whether I had to design my own pattern or I could use one that's been designed by someone else. So that really helped me narrow that down. So that's something you really need to think about, and you need to think about kind of what are you comfortable charging per hour if you decide to go the per hour route. You know, when I first started, I'm going to speak a little on a taboo subject here because a lot of people do not give out specific information on how much they would charge and that sort of thing. And I don't really understand why. You know, the more we share with each other, the more we can grow as a community. When I first started, brand new Etsy shop back in 2017, I started charging $10 an hour, which thinking back now, I'm like, what in the world was I thinking? And I was very hesitant to charge a lot of money because I didn't think I was that good. So, you know, I was kind of devaluing my skill set. I just didn't think anyone would pay a lot for a quilt. So I was charging very little. So I would be charging $10 an hour. And then I was not factoring in design time in my labor. So when I was figuring out the hours, I was only thinking of, you know, if I was really focused and just working on that quilt, what is the shortest amount of time I could get that quilt done in? And then that's how I would come up with my price, which would, you know, wasn't great. And I was not charging at all for design time. And most of the quilts that I made, I designed myself. I came up with my own pattern. I'd figure out the math for everything. And that was hours and hours of work per quilt. And I wasn't charging for that. That's something to consider. You could even charge more for your design time. Like for coming up with the concept and everything, you could charge 25 bucks an hour, 30 bucks an hour, you know, for that. And then for the piecing, you charge $15 an hour, whatever. You figure out what works for you, what you're comfortable with. But the fact that I was charging only 10 bucks an hour for everything is a little crazy now. And I would do like bare minimum time of what I would think it would take. And I always took longer to make the quilt than what I had anticipated. And I never reached out and told them, you know what, this actually took me 5 extra hours, because I already gave them the quote, you know, and that wouldn't look great. So what I started doing as I got more comfortable with making the quilts and selling them and things is I started overestimating the time. So I would give them the quote, and I would tell them, if it takes me less time than what I am quoting you, then I will send back the difference. And that worked great, and I never had to send back the difference because I would still use up the time. I would still kind of guesstimate on the low end of how long it would take. But then I was finally, you know, not basically doing work for free, you know, because I was trying to make a living. It's not like I wasn't just making the quilts just for fun, you know, you cover the cost of the materials and I get to make a quilt for fun and we both win, you know. It wasn't that type of situation. So if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. Another option that I would give my customers is I could tell them, well, I can buy fabrics from Joann's, which were, you know, I would always buy fabric on sale. So it would be around $6 or $7 a yard. Or I could buy designer fabrics, and those would be closer to, you know, $10 or $12 a yard. And this may be surprising to people, but I never had anyone choose the designer fabrics. They preferred the cheaper fabric. They were not concerned about the quilt, you know, lasting 7 generations or whatever. They wanted something beautiful that they could gift to someone that they'd be able to enjoy, you know, for a long time. A quilt made from Joann's fabric is going to last a long time. Joann's fabric is not garbage. That mentality in the quilting community really needs to change. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, it's just, I just don't understand where that came from and why there's such snobbery basically about Joann's fabric. I understand some of it's not as good feeling quality as some of the designer fabrics. I know that. I acknowledge that. I agree. but to completely write off an entire store and all of their inventory just because of whatever you might have heard from one person is just kind of silly. I still shop at Joann's. I like it. I also shop a lot at Missouri Star Quilt Company because I really like the company. They have really great deals on the nice fabric, so I'm still able to spend less and get really nice fabric. And now I'm actually a partner with Missouri Star Quilt Company, which is wild that I am in their partner program. It's a dream come true for me, really, to be partnered with them. And anyways, so that's something to consider if you want to give people options. You know, I can use these products. This is the price that it'll be, or I can use the nicer products, and this is what the price will be if I use that, and kind of give them the option. It's good to note that some people like all the options. They like to be very involved in the process of picking fabrics and picking the pattern and all that stuff. And some people, they just kind of tell you what they want and they say, do what you want. You know, send me the bill. So that's kind of fun to work with different types of people as well. I always liked working with the people that wanted to be a little bit more involved in the process. That's something to keep in mind when you are deciding to go into this line of work, that you are going to have to deal with people. Some people may be rude with their offers, but they just don't know. You know, they just don't know. They're not trying to be insulting, and we're all looking for a good deal, right? They're no different. They're looking for a good deal. Now, if someone keeps on coming back and just lowballing you after lowball, I would just tell them, like, no, thank you. No, thank you. Good luck finding someone else to do the project for you, because this is what I'm doing for a living. I can't spend 60 hours on a project for $150. That's just not realistic. So there's a gentle way to go about it where you're not being rude, but you're making your point, right? So yeah, so the first thing I like to figure out is the person's budget. Then I like to find out kind of what size they're looking for. They usually go ahead and tell you when they're first reaching out, but that's something I really like to find out as well, a size. And then I also kind of like to find out their style and kind of what they're thinking. Are they wanting a more traditional looking quilt, or do they like modern things? Also with color palettes and things like that, I like to find that out right away also. So find out, do they want blues? Do they want reds? Do they want rainbow colors? Do they want pastels? That sort of thing. And then kind of find out what kind of prints that they like. Do they like florals? Do they hate florals? Would they rather you just use solid fabrics? A lot of people like just using solid fabrics, and that's a really great option because solid fabrics a lot of times are cheaper than prints. So you guys know I love Kona solids. It goes on sale all the time. It's available at Joann's, by the way, but those are really great fabrics. They're solids. They have like 180 shades, I think, something like that. So that's a really good option to use. So once you kind of figure out their budget, the size they want, kind of their style, and kind of what they have in mind, because a lot of times they'll have example quilts, like pictures of them that they'll send you and be like, I want this, or I want parts of this quilt and parts of this quilt put together into one, that sort of thing. Then you need to decide if you need to buy a pattern that's already been written by someone, or if you want to design your own. For me, the reason why I designed so many of my own was because I was making a lot of memory quilts out of unconventional fabrics. So I was using a lot of baby clothing, flannel shirts, denim, dresses, bed sheets, curtains. What else did I use? I think that's t-shirts. I think I used some tote bags at some point. So there's just, there's so many options when you're making memory quilts. These people wanted something unique, one of a kind type of deal. So that's what I was making. So I would design the quilt myself. And if you're doing that, make sure you are charging for that time, whether it's just a bulk, you know, I'm going to charge you $150 to design the quilt, or if you want to charge by the hour, whatever you want to do. For me, I just charged by the hour, and it would only take me a few hours to design a quilt usually, because a lot of times people don't want anything super intricate, especially for the memory quilts, because they want the fabrics to be the star of the show. They don't necessarily want the quilt to be the star of the show, if that makes sense. They're not quilters that are in love with a quilt pattern. They're family members that want something special made from their loved ones' belongings. So you can kind of include that. And if you are using a pattern, include the price of the pattern in the quote. Unless you already have the pattern, then you don't have to. But I would include it, because you wouldn't necessarily be buying that pattern unless this person wanted that quilt. I really, really want to emphasize, you want to be realistic with your quote. You don't want to undervalue your work. You know, I know you want the work, you want to be making the quilt, you know, but you want to actually be making the money. You know, whether this money is going to, you're trying to make a full-time income making these items, or you're just trying to have like a supplemental income coming in for bills or family trips or whatever you're going to use the money, savings, that sort of thing. You really want to make sure that you're charging an appropriate amount for your creativity. It is very sad when you have spent so much time, especially on a quilt. I know other things take a lot of time too, but quilts are what I know. And spending so much time on a quilt and then realizing after you ship it out, like, I only made like $50. I just made $1 an hour for what I made. Like, that's really sad and not a good feeling. And I did that for a long time. I probably did that for at least the first year I was making quilts. I was really undercharging for what I was making. And some people got some really good deals on some really nice quilts, but I kind of had to come to a realization, like, I'm not making any money off of this. This is ridiculous. Like, all of the time that I'm putting in and not making much. So what I did was I started charging for my design time. I charged for all materials. If I realized a couple of times, if I realized that I didn't get enough material, I would message the person and be like, hey, I realized I did not charge for X, Y, and Z. I'm going to need you to pay for that. And the people that reach out to have a quilt made are so sweet. I don't think I ever had a rude person, and I dealt with dozens of people throughout the years, and I never had someone be rude. They were always like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then they'd PayPal me the extra money. Just keep that in mind. You want to be realistic with your quote and not undervalue your creativity and your skills and your abilities, you know? Something else that you need to be realistic with yourself is your timetable. Like I said, when I was first starting, I would like figure that, like, yeah, this quilt will take me 10, 15 hours tops. And then I'd get, you know, to like 30 or 40 hours later, like, oh goodness, this took me way longer than I was anticipating. And, you know, I did a lot of labor for free that way, and that wasn't great. But I was learning, you know, I did not go to business school. I had no experience in anything like this, you know, so I didn't know what I was doing. I just want to be that voice to you. So if you're starting your journey on making handmade items, that's amazing. You are going to do it, and it's going to be amazing, and you're going to do great. You're going to make beautiful pieces of art. But I want you to be realistic with the money that you are charging and with your timetable. Also with your timetable, if you have someone reach out to you and be like, I need this done and I need it in 2 weeks. Be realistic. If that's going to be way too much of a crunch and you're going to be super stressed out getting it done, then tell them, sorry, I can do it for you, but it's going to be 4 weeks or whatever. There's no reason for you to be putting pressure on yourself and stress on yourself to get a project done because the customer decided till the last minute to get it done. You know, it's not your fault that they waited so long. That's something that I learned very quickly I was not going to do because it was just too much. It's not good. It's not good to feel that stress because stress hinders creativity. So if you're trying to make something creatively, but you're under a bunch of stress because of it, it's not going to be your best work. You're not going to do the best on it. So keep that in mind too, and make sure you find out their like required time that they want it done before you agree to doing anything. So that's really, really important. I just thought of another thing that is very, very important. Do not buy any materials. Do not spend any time on the project until they have paid you at least a down payment. Figure out what you want that down payment to be and have them pay you that first. If they can't pay you for the full amount of the project, let's say you're going to make a large queen size quilt and you quote them $1,000. And they're like, I can't pay you $1,000 right away. Just be like, okay, that's fine. I need this much for the materials because I'm going to go ahead and get those ordered. And I would like this much for some design time. So let's say that total comes out to $250, $300. Just be like, that'll be your down payment. And then you can pay me the rest as it gets closer to shipping. And then you must pay me the rest of the balance before I ship the item. And I would not go back on that. I would make sure that they have paid you in full before you send them the item. 'Cause I like to see the best in people, but reality, some people will not pay if you do that. They will take advantage of your generosity and your kindness and they will not pay. But if they've already paid you, $300 for the down payment, and you're sending them progress pictures of the project, and they're getting really excited about it, and you're like, well, you still owe me $700, and I will send this to you as soon as you send me that. And yeah, I never had an issue with someone paying or trying to get out of paying or anything like that. Again, people are usually super nice if they're reaching out to an artist to have them make them something. So but I just want you to be aware that that is a possibility. So protect yourself. Make sure no one's gonna try to take advantage of you sending the item before they've paid for it. Also, do not forget to include shipping costs in your quote and find out where this person is located. If this is an international shipment, shipping can be very expensive to other countries. So you want to figure that all out beforehand because you don't want to get hit at the end with, oh, well, actually, you have to pay an extra $100 to ship this to another country. I had that happen one time where I made a custom quilt for this super sweet man in Australia. And it was such a fun quilt to make, but the shipping to Australia was a lot more expensive than I had anticipated. And it like completely blew over my head. I didn't even think of it until I was getting ready to ship. And then I was like getting the shipping label already. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to cost way more. So, and I had already told him that shipping was included. So I wasn't going to be like, well, you know what? Because it was my fault. I didn't check the shipping costs to him. So it was my fault. So that was a bummer. But I still made money on that quilt because that was after I had figured out that I actually need to be charging for design time and charging more per hour. So when I first started, I was charging about $10 an hour. By the end, I was making custom quilts from 2017 to 2022. 2022 was the last time I made a custom quilt, I think. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And by the time I was there, I was charging $20 an hour. and it was just 20 bucks an hour across the board. So for design time, piecing the quilt, quilting the quilt, finishing the quilt, all that, that was $20 an hour. And I was realistic with my timeline with myself. So if it was going to take me 40 hours to make the quilt, then I was charging them $800 of labor across the board, and then adding on materials and all that stuff. So that's what I was doing. If you're uncomfortable with charging that, or you want to charge more, then you do what you want to do. But I just want it to be completely open with you guys about that, and just let you know you are allowed to charge more than $10 an hour for your work, or $12 an hour, or whatever you might be charging now. It's okay to charge more. You might get fewer orders, but the orders that you do get, you're making more on, right? So it really evens out. And when I started charging more, I was getting fewer orders, but I was making a lot more each month. That's something to keep in mind. So I hope this has been helpful. Hopefully I wasn't too rambly. I have been recording for almost 35 minutes, but I hope this helps somebody. If you have any additional questions for me, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to have a discussion. If you want to talk, if you want to reach out to me on Instagram, you can, and I'm happy to help anybody. You know, I was figuring it all out on my own when I had my Etsy shop, and there wasn't really any information. No one was talking about it. So I thought this would be a good video to make, and it gave me my arm a rest, so that was good. Thank you for watching this. Now I'm going to jump into announcements for anyone that wants to know. We will be doing another live this coming Tuesday, so June 25th at 6 p.m. Central Time. I'll be doing a live, and we will be working on the gingham square dance quilt. I got corrected multiple times for saying gingham. Apparently people did not like that. So it's pronounced gingham. I pronounce some words weird, okay? I can't help it. But the gingham square dance quilt, it's a super fun beginner quilt pattern that I released. This is free. So if you would like this quilt pattern, even if you don't come to the live, you can get the quilt pattern. And that will be available in the description box below. There'll just be a form that you fill out, your first name and your email, and you will get access to the quilt pattern. It's a 7-page pattern with diagrams and instructions and everything to make the quilt, and it's a very fun quilt. Several people have already made theirs, and they look so cute. So I'm really excited to make mine, and it's going to be a fun live. So June 25th at 6 p.m. Central Time, we'll meet back here, and we'll go from there. I think that's about it. Don't forget to use my Missouri Star Quilt Company discount link down in the description box below. You get 20% off any order over $50, which is really great. They're having some really good sales this summer because they're gearing up for their big birthday bash that's in September. So keep an eye on them and use that discount when you can. And just thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a really great day, a really great weekend, and I can't wait to see you guys in the live on Tuesday. All right? Have a great day, guys. Bye. My throat is so dry. Man, I hope that wasn't all scatterbrained. I feel like I was all over the place. I don't know. Hopefully it was good. Hopefully it was good. You guys, did you see 15,320 people? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is so crazy. I cannot believe that I have so many subscribers to my channel. Like, it's just unbelievable. And I feel so blessed and weird about it because I'm like so excited, and it's just so cool. All right. I need to edit this video now.